So today I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the other houses, aside from the Dustana houses that I talked about in another video. So these are some other important things to know when you're learning your basics of astrology and getting down your fundamentals. And these are the luckiest houses, the Trikona houses, or the Trines as they're called in Western astrology, houses 1, 5, and 9. The first, fifth, and ninth houses. Um, these are the luckiest houses in the whole chart. So any planets placed here are going to just flow through your life more smoothly and with more grace and more ease. They're going to fulfill their desire, or like the things that they want to do, more smoothly. These are also the houses of Dharma. You know, we talk so much about Dharma in throughout yoga, philosophy, and that whole world. Well, these are the houses of your Dharma, the 1, 5, and 9 houses. It's actually interesting because the word Trikona is actually not a Sanskrit word. It's actually a Greek word. It comes from the Greek word for these houses, which was Trigon. And so that is actually an interesting thing because astrology, I mean, Vedic astrology is definitely an Indian thing. I'm not trying to say that. There are some people who say that, some scholars who say that astrology was brought into India by the Greeks and then left, or this or that sort of thing. But that doesn't account for all the different things in Indian astrology that are unique to Indian astrology, like nakshatras and many other things and all the yogas and all this stuff. But it is kind of neat because, yeah, Trikona, the word that we use for these trines houses, is not a Sanskrit word, it's a Greek word. And that does show that there was a lot more cross-pollination of cultures going on in ancient times than we might give credit for. Similarly, when I do a video about the angles, the 1st, 4th, 7th, and 10th, those are called kendras in Vedic astrology, but that's not a Sanskrit word either. It actually comes from the Greek word kendron, which was the word for the angles in Greek. So both of these words are actually borrowed over from Greek mythology. There might have been older Sanskrit words they used, but those are lost, at least to my knowledge. So that's kind of interesting. But yeah, the first house is the house of your body, your path in life, and how your path's going to unfold and how you project. So if you have a planet in the first house, that's good. That's like saying he's got this planet that he'll work with. You know, this planet is lined up for him to be having there's some element of grace that's going to unfold with this planet. So planets in the first house tend to work out smoothly, and they tend to represent parts of you that you're really good at and have developed in the past. Unless it's a planet in a really bad dignity, then it might show that, yeah, this planet might work on some levels, but it's a planet that you have not developed in the past and might have problems with and might need to develop. But even if it's on the first, there will still be some element about it that's luckier. It might develop more luckily than if that planet was in a Dustana house, like the 8th house. So say you have Saturn on the ascendant. Well, Saturn is a really tough planet, and so it's tough to have that on the ascendant. But if it's on the ascendant, one good thing about that is that there's going to be an element of Saturn that is fitting for your Dharma and is a part of your grace. And so you might be one of those people who ends up realizing that, well, you know, it's not really the suffering that's the problem, it's my attachment to the suffering. And I need to keep working through these situations and, you know, learn more about suffering. I can grow through this. It's not the end of the world. You might take a more positive approach to suffering and to the more hard things of life that Saturn rules. Let's say it's Mercury on the ascendant. That would mean that one has a lot of good skills with their cognition, good skills overall that they're bringing into their life. Like they're a more skillful person. There's more there's going to be some element of grace in their life when it comes to how they communicate and their speech, and they might learn quickly and cognize more efficiently and more fortunately than other people. So that's kind of how that works. So any planets in the first, fifth, or ninth are going to be luckier right off the bat. All other techniques, all other things being equal, of course. Everything else that you know about astrology, you still have to factor that in. The fifth house, that's the house of our mind and our creative intelligence and how we co-create with God. And so, of course, that's a really lucky house. So if you have a planet in the fifth house, that planet is going to, you have a knack for that planet. You have a good intelligence of that type of planet. You have that type of planet's intelligence, is one way to put it. And so you can use that to your benefit. It's also the house of good past life karma, like purva punya, they say. So good karma carried over from past lives will be connected to your fifth house often. So say you have Venus in the fifth house, then love works out well for you. You must have been good in relationships for many past lives to have gotten this, and let's say it's also in good dignity, then you have really meaningful relationships, and you have a lot of great relationships that you can kind of rely on and that support you. So there could be a lot of other challenging things in the chart, but because of that, your life is better and more enriched as a result. And so that is God's grace flowing through your life by giving you better relationships, aka a better Venus. So that would be if Venus was in the fifth. And then the ninth house has to do with like the fortune and the way things unfold as we go down our path and as we're walking our path. So it has more to do with how things unfold towards the end. And then if there's a planet there, that shows that there is some promise of something good happening in the end. So it's better to have benefics in the trines or these trikona places, because if you had like a benefic Jupiter in the ninth, then that's showing, oh, well, you might get great teachers and great guides and gurus who help you along the way and who make the whole rest of your life easier. Or you might have a good marriage, especially if you're a woman. You might have if you have Jupiter in the ninth, you might have a good, fortunate marriage to look forward to later on in your life that, you know, makes the rest of the burdens of life easier. So this is sort of how that works. Planets that are in the first, fifth, and ninth, you're kind of luckier with those planets overall. And then the planets that rule those houses are going to be lucky, fortunate energies and planets for you. So let's say that the moon is in the fifth house. Then one might notice that they have good luck with moon-related things like the water element, or they end up, say that moon connects to your home, then you might have a nice home that's got a lot, like a nice, you know, home by the ocean or something. You might like swimming. You might just feel really good in the ocean and feel really rejuvenated from the ocean. And from doing ocean activities, whereas other people just don't get that same feeling. They're like, yeah, I like the beach, it's cool, but I don't like the sand and all these other problems. But if you had the moon in the fifth, then that would show that there's some good past life karma connected to beaches and the ocean, maybe. And that's why you're really into sailing or really into swimming. So there's all these ways that you can play that out and interpret that in your life. These are the first and the fifth house have to do with your intelligence, and the ninth a little bit, but more to do with the guides and the higher, like even devas or higher forces and spirits and things like that can be connected to the ninth house. So these are kind of the opposite of the bad places, the Dusthanas I was explaining. These are the really good places, the fortunate parts of the chart where things just tend to work out smoothly. So if you got planets there, you can be really happy about that. And there'll be a part of your Dharma, or where you get your inspiration, or what a part of your innate nature to act upon is in this life. They'll have a role to play in that. All right, thanks y'all. Bye.